Hello, we're in Cyber UK here in Manchester, and with me today is Professor Danny Dresner, who's going to be talking to us about his work as Professor of Cybersecurity here in Manchester. Danny, welcome.
Thank you. I'm a real Cyber UK junkie. I've only ever missed one. In fact, I was going to Cyber UK before they called it Cyber UK.
So which one did you miss?
The Birmingham one last year.
Oh.
There was just too much going on in other areas. Ironically, by the time I realised that the thing that was keeping me away from there was going to finish on time, of course it was too late to register. But hey-ho.
But we've got you here for Manchester.
Yes. The best one.
The best one, absolutely. And what have you enjoyed most about today?
I think it's a really good place for being able to catch up and to do some serious networking, because you've got such a good mix of all the different areas, from SMEs to government, local and central, and lots of academic colleagues as well. That we would otherwise only be on Teams or email, and we can just sit down, relax, and have a bit of a chat about families and cyber.
Actually being with people in person, there's something from a socio-technical perspective, I imagine, that's really important.
Well, absolutely, because you start talking around the subject and not just hitting at the the sort of things which are easily classified under the 21 knowledge areas of CyBOK or whatever. It's much more relaxed, and the important thing of the mix of industry and government and academia, you've got the relevance and rigor of what's going on, and people who can just pursue things because it's interesting and you don't know necessarily where it's going to go, and other people who have really got to get things working quite quickly because they're a commercial enterprise and they've got wages to pay and shareholders to please.
Definitely. So now many people will know your work, and a number of us will have heard you speak here before. But for those in the audience who haven't come across you before, what's your specialism? What do you study?
My particular interest is about risk. And it's a great area because it's very much understanding about whether it's worth doing something, and very importantly, from a cyber point of view, whether things are going to be safe, and what do you need to do to reduce the risk of bad things happening, but importantly, what can you do to actually increase the risk of things going well? So
catastrophic success.
Absolutely. So one of our early projects as a community in Manchester, we created this entity called the Greater Manchester Cyber Foundry. It was great from several respects, because it was around the time that the Greater Manchester Combined Authority was formulated, and they called together University of Manchester, Manchester Metropolitan University, which I dearly love because it was Manchester Poly I started at when I came to Manchester a long time ago, University of Salford and Lancaster University, and they said we want to have a digital security hub in the city centre, a physical place where people can come and talk about cyber and improve things overall. We're expecting at the time, and of course it happened, for GCHQ to come and make a base in Manchester. But the real insight was that they didn't want it to just open, with some nice plants and empty desks. They wanted something going on. And it was absolutely in the sort of the field that I'm very interested in. It was, which is really about not just reducing risk of bad stuff happening, and really enabling things from a cyber point of view. It was aimed at small to medium-sized enterprises, helping them to integrate cyber in their business, not as a fear, uncertainty, and doubt you're going to be hacked and all the bad stuff is happening. Is to look at their business model and seeing how they could grow their businesses by taking advantage of what cyber stuff can actually enable.
Which year was this? When was that happening?
Oh, goodness gracious.
We can do a Scooby-Doo effect, if you like, with your flickering screen.
Absolutely. Well, gosh, no. Well, it goes right back. Right. Yeah. Because there's all the applications and there's finding funding for it, and we had great support from the European Regional Development Fund, because this was about regional development, and this is the marvelous thing about Greater Manchester, about the northwest in itself. It's really special because you've got this great big urbanisation of Greater Manchester, but you've still got the rural sides of Cheshire and Lancashire and Cumbria, and you've got the going into the Merseyside.
Very diverse.
Stuff. It's absolutely diverse, and my motto is that we have to have diversity in adversity. And so it was probably 2018 when we got the funding. It was supposed to be for 3 years, but of course things slowed down a little point because of course 2020 came, and I've still got a calendar in my office which says March. I haven't moved it from March 2020. It's now going to be a historical artifact, just sitting there. So it was extended, and it was a really interesting piece of work to look at, because you got close to businesses. You were able to help them.
But back in 2018, and you've just described there sort of how, of course, COVID was about to impact and just disrupt best laid plans. But imagine coming to that setting up that organisation in 2018, you came to it with theory of change, I'd imagine. There'd been other engagement with SMEs, experience how to do this. So when you started this, what you learned from your previous experiences? What was going to make this a success?
Well, one of the biggest lessons, we absolutely did not want this to be another awareness campaign. I've got a real, I get very jittery when people say awareness, because generally it means that you're going to overload some people with taking responsibility for a system which hasn't been designed very well in the first place, and therefore expect them not to click on a link or be taken in by professional criminals. So you're putting an awful lot of burden on these people. One of the big lessons was that we wanted to make this about cyber, and we wanted it to be about cyber enablement for businesses to be able to grow. One of the measures we had was businesses' revenue and employment growing, as well as how innovative they were. And this might be their own products, or it might be their own internal workings. But one of the things that we absolutely did not want it to be was yet another awareness tool, another awareness session. But we did listen to customer feedback, as it were, because most of the SMEs who we engaged actually did want to learn something about cyber. So we had to kind of tack that on and build that in. But that itself was an opportunity to say, yes, there's this awareness thing, but there is more to cyber about this, and then look to help them build their systems and their business processes, and have those business processes implemented in technology, because otherwise it's just another spec that people are going to forget to follow, and they would get the support to be able to build that. It also showed, the other interesting lesson was that people would come expecting some new technology. It was generally, oh yeah, we've got an idea, can you build an app for us? Well, two things, look, this is not just about giving you a bit of free IT support. We actually want to do something to help your business. You can go elsewhere. This is specifically about cyber. One of the big lessons that came to us wasn't just that people also wanted some cyber basics and what not to click, and which was great because I was involved with the development and the certification schemes for Cyber Essentials. So it's something I was well ensconced in. In fact, actually, eventually helping people to get Cyber Essentials became part of it. But importantly, it really showed up that some organisations just weren't really ready for technology. Or advanced technology from a connected point of view, and we took them back a step and helped them to develop the overall architecture for their business, which meant that they could actually get their business on a secure footing. Because being SMEs, they'd started with a PC here and a phone there, and connected things up as they would do with commodity odds and sods and the like. And so there was no particular vision, no particular strategy. So we were kind of rolling out architectural strategies for these SMEs, something that they would never have been able to have afforded. But we were able to give them this from the ERDF funding, engaging students and colleagues from around the universities. So it was this mutually beneficial environment, a real ecosystem in itself, just within one project. And the third lesson was that it gave something tangible. You found that if anybody started talking about Greater Manchester and cyber security activities, from Jeremy Fleming, who was head of GCHQ at the time, to Andy Burnham, who's still our regional mayor. They'd all talk about the Cyber Foundry, and that gave them something which people could latch onto. When you talk about all the various things you need to cyber, there's so much of it. It's huge. There's a lot of things to do. But when you talk about the Cyber Foundry itself, it was tangible. And that kind of gave way eventually to a physical space, our digital security hub, where you have a melting pot of different organisations who can have a quick chat with GCHQ, who are just stationed above. You can have nice low-side conversations, without having to, make a pilgrimage down to Cheltenham and go through the secure. These are obviously all important rigmaroles, and it might get to that. It might get to high-side stuff, but so much of the dual-use opportunities and the innovation and understanding where the businesses lie, having that physical space, that relaxed, safe physical space. With a few basic controls. You can't just walk in off the street. But we want that to be safe for the people involved, not least because we've got colleagues working there all the time, and we have young people in from schools as well on placements.
Famously so. It's brilliant to see them there. You mentioned the word ecosystem. An ecosystem, I think, means many things to different people, and sometimes perhaps we're guilty of overusing the term. What do you mean by it when you think of the ecosystem?
I think the most important thing to think about when trying to define what an ecosystem is not being bounded. And realizing, yes, that there is interactions to be had, and there is knowledge and experience which you can get from other people. And realize, here we are in Cyber UK, and it's full of people who you might say are in the industry. Is it an industry? I don't know. Discuss, as we'd say on the exam papers. But it involves everyone. So you've got that community. You've got that right in Manchester city centre. With the pubs and the clubs and the retail and the shops and the manufacturing. Going out. It's a central point, and it's that interaction. And it's when you get that interaction, and sometimes just visual interaction or an understanding of what's going on in different places, that becomes an ecosystem, because it's bringing requirements, it's bringing an understanding of people's security challenges, their challenges in as much as, well, we might have some fine things that they can do, but from their point of view, it's not very practical, or it might be too expensive. So it's a place, a melting pot for all of those different variables, all of those different communities. I always describe Manchester as a community of communities. And to quote my good colleague, Professor Simon Cook, is that you can't protect the nation unless you reflect the nation. And I think that's the same in agencies like GCHQ. But also, it's back to what they taught me at Manchester Poly back in the 1980s. That you've got to listen to what the users can do and what they was used. I used to work for the National Computing Centre, and there was a sort of like revelatory moment when they realised, yes, the people that buy systems, well, it would be a good idea if they spoke to the people who use the systems, and the people who use the systems should talk to the people who actually build the systems.
Indeed. So you've described there that really rich community of communities, the complexity, the dynamism, the growth behind it. How do we lead that as leaders, whether that be within the agencies like GCHQ, or Andy Burnham, the mayor, or academic leaders like you? What's your style of leadership to really make that successful?
Yeah. You might have the titles. You might be part of the organisation, University of Manchester, GCHQ, National Cyber Security Centre. But the key thing is not holding onto that rank. It's finding the people who you can pass it on to, because that's how it gets out into the ecosystem. So one of the best examples is that I had some students who took part in a competition, the UK Cyber Leaders Challenge, It's a strategy competition, so this is not huge, hacking away at keyboards, trying to do clever technical things, break into systems, secure systems, and the like. This is looking at the equivalent of a real scenario, and how would you deal with a real threat to our way of life in the UK. As a result of which, one of these students has been totally inspired by it. She's now leading. She's formed a new student society, the Manchester Intelligence Society, and she's going to have young people and her colleagues doing this all through the year, and that message will go out, and this so the new leaders are being created all the time. And that's very much the ecosystem. It's not standing still. It's not It's not building. It's not building walls. It's actually breaking down the walls and enabling. I mean, this is the kind of the security challenge, I think, of the 21st century, isn't it? I think it's like the head of MI6, one of the security agencies, said that we have to make the country more secure by being more open. Indeed. Which of course is very challenging. And yes, of course, there is some stuff which only certain people will be privy to. That's the way the world works. We all have high a need for privacy. That's why one of the things actually we want out of cybersecurity. But at the same time, we want to be able to open things up, because it's the law of requisite variety. It's only if we have sufficient variety, this diversity in adversity, that we'll have the mix of people who are coming up with the innovation.
So with that that's a regional context and approach to leadership, what's the role for central government in that picture?
I think it's for central government to look at. I mean, obviously, Manchester. I mean, I would say that, but like I said, I came here in 1981, and I haven't bought a return ticket yet. To look at the talent in Manchester and realise that perhaps the UK is still a little bit southeast centric. That there are opportunities to help for government, across the width of the country. Not for people to come down. I went to a tour of various facilities around Bletchley Park, and we saw the Milton Keynes College, and they very proudly told us that they were just a stone's throw from the train track to London. And of course, coming from where I came from, I said, but that's the wrong direction.
Very good. Earlier you sort of talked about when you talk about risks, you noted sort of some risks are negative, the risk of cyber attacks, of course, which we'll have seen in the media over the last couple of weeks and months. But of course also the risks in terms of benefits, opportunities, potential for growth, which again is a major driver for the current government. Are we doing everything we can to really maximise the potential for economic growth as we tackle those threats?
I think that, it's one of these things, you can always do more. You can always do more. But I think one of the things we ought to be doing is getting over the positive side of what's happened with the various cyber attacks that are going on. As we sit here, there's all of these problems that colleagues in retail are having to face, and probably lots of other things, bad stuff going on. But what has struck me with what's going on in retail, in previous years when we've had these big incidents, I'm using the word incident, I'm trying not to use these kind of emotional words like attack and cyber war and all of that kind of thing. I think we could do with a softer language which brings it into everyday life and not so aggressive. The thing about these incidents is that these shops are managing to continue with some of their business. There was a time where it was one out, all out, and hit the network, everything would be down. Yes, I'm not belittling the problems that they have, the online orders, but people are on the whole able to go into shops. And as we've been discussing with colleagues, the newspapers love to show the empty shelves. What they're not showing, of course, are the shelves which are full. So it's not a total collapse. So I think that we need to be able to get over the good news stories. I mean, even some years ago, I remember being at a Friday night dinner, and this guy says, "Oh, so you're in cybersecurity?" And I was thinking, Friday night off, I don't want to talk about it. He says, "Are we winning?" And I said, "Well, look, the water. We've got pure water in the taps. The traffic lights are changing. The food's hot." Yes, of course, bad stuff happens, but we've got to remember the positive side of stuff.
Would you see that as resilience and action?
100%. Absolutely. I think the most important. I mean, I'm doing some work currently looking at different ways to balance the people and technology. They all begin with C. On the basis that risk, the idea of risk started in travel by sea. So I have 7 Cs. Yes, I know it's a little bit corny, but you have to have some sort of shtick for that. But the last one is cope, because bad stuff will happen. And I think that's what I've seen career-wise. It was always protect and put these controls in, and it was always on the basis that yes, there was a little bit about recovery and disaster recovery, as we always used to talk about, and a little bit of business continuity, but on the whole, we didn't really look at the idea of when something bad happens. And actually, historically, I think it was the very first Cyber UK over in Liverpool, when Ian Levy, the technical director at the time, said we need to change the way we think and learn how to cope with bad actors being on our systems. So coping with and having the redress. I was saying to the fella who in a queue, who I'd ordered my goods online and I just had to go and pick them up, and he's no, not doing that. But I pointed out that the whole system, that should there be a bad incident, that the credit cards were set up to repay them. So yes, it's not all about protection all the way. It's also being able to recover. And what was it the bankers say? It's about absorbing the problem, not making it bigger.
That can be quite a difficult message for ministers and politicians to put across to the public. Do you have any advice for how we communicate those sorts of quite psychological issues?
It's hugely difficult. It's hugely difficult. Firstly, from the complexity. A bit going back to the current problems and the empty shelves. Everybody focuses on the empty shelves, not the full shelves. I mean, I don't know whether is this a British thing that we prefer to talk about the glass half empty. I don't know, but also there is this feeling that yes, that people will immediately compartmentalize any failure. And I suppose it's the same problem. People will focus on this, and they want success all the time, and also the challenge, of course, being is that we've got systems which were never designed to have this interconnection. And now that we realise what fantastic benefits we can get from this, so what do we do about it? Well, that change isn't going to happen overnight, and it needs time and investment. But most of all, it needs innovation. I mean, I don't know who it was, but I always said that whoever it was who worked out how to get data over, the ADSL over copper lines should have had an award. Yes, of course, not fast enough for the kind of living that we now expect, but to be able to do something so clever and innovative with what we've got. I think that's that's an important skill, and it goes together. We're talking ecosystem language as well. People who are able to make the most of what we've got, to people who are able to bring in the next generation, and importantly to have the transformation and the change, and also nursing people through the change, because there will be people who will still want to do it the old way, despite the risks, and perhaps that because nothing as bad has happened. I think it's. Was it the kind of the space shuttle mentality, where the management basically said, well, we've had 57 up that problem, and the engineers were saying, I think there is a bit of an issue here. So it's how you count them. So of course the problem with government is you've got politicians who are in the front line, and they want easily understandable improvements. And I mean, the challenge that in my understanding, and I don't know how to get it across to them, is actually yes, these small tweaks. I mean, this is why it's very cyber. I mean, if you trace cyber back to Norbert Wiener, MIT, and original cybernetics, you make a change that causes something. There's some feedback, and as a result of which you adjust. Well, that's fine if you've say got one computer or one phone, but when you've got 1,000 computers and I don't know how many different sensors and Internet of Things devices and complex systems, supplying everything from power to food manufacture. We're talking, general public safety. So the problems are huge and complex, and we just have to. I think we just have to recognise and have some patience. I mean, the good thing I've noticed is, again, over my time working in this, is that when there was a cyber incident, everyone would kind of go. There'd be a lot of sort of sniggering, and now it's there, but for the grace of God go I.
So you've mentioned bringing on next generation of talent a few times. And it's been really refreshing how you put people, I think, at the core of your narrative and story throughout this interview. If you're a young person today, perhaps part of the Cyber First cadre, or perhaps somebody in Manchester thinking about what subjects to study next, where to take an apprenticeship, what would your advice be if they wanted to get into cyber?
Come and try it. Come and try it. I mean, one of the things that we've done really successfully at Dish is to have. I mean, actually, we'd like to do it with some younger people. We've had. I was going to say lower sixth, without showing my age. We've had some year 12 students in. On essentially work placements. Sometimes they're placed with a company, sometimes we've given them a task to do. And we've had students who just thought, well, this might be a bit interesting, who are totally smitten by the by the cyber bug. One particular student stands out. She'd never written a line of computer code in her life, and by the end of a couple of weeks, she designed a whole game. About cyber security. Another one, she had designed a game based on essentially a card game, which again was absolutely right, because not everybody would want to actually start playing with computers. So they all tackle things in different ways, and we're hearing from some of these young people that they're now going off to universities and apprenticeships and getting work. And these are and again kind of the mechanisms and the communications in our ecosystem, in our community, we're able to get and inspire young people who wouldn't have had this advantage. I mean, again, this was actually a lesson I learned from COVID. You'd always think that a student studying computer science or was interested in computer science, there'd be a computer at home. And if there was, they might have to share it with several siblings as well. So just to be able to give them that resource, give them a little bit of time, give them a little bit of focus.
So Danny, one final question for you. If you were lucky enough to be the Chief Executive Officer of NCSC for a day, what would you do?
I would say, let's stop. I'm not belittling. I mean, I think it's great that we look at the number of people working in cyber and how much cyber income is coming to UK PLC. But what I don't think we're really doing very well, if at all, is actually doing very much to measure the absolute and the most important goal of the National Cyber Security Centre, to make the UK the safest place to live and work online. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to measure, but that's the absolute social measurement that we should be able to take and know, so that as we're doing great things and innovating, is it actually stopping bad people doing bad things, and is it enabling good people to do even better things?
So stronger KPIs. I think that's a really great answer. And look, well, thank you very much for coming today. Brilliant interview. Lovely to chat. Cool. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll see you at the after party later.
I shall look forward.
Take care.